Solutions to the Dropout Crisis, addressing the dropout crisis one strategy at a time. Brought to you by the National Dropout Prevention Center Network with support from K-12 and Fuel Education and in partnership with Clemson Broadcast Productions. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome once again to Solutions to the Dropout Crisis. Here it is March, and in some parts of the country it's pretty snowy, although it's supposed to be spring, but here we are, and we're going to have a wonderful conversation today. And I wanted to introduce first my co-host, Karen Withington, who is the Assistant Director of the National Dropout Prevention Center. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Marty. Thanks for introducing me. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, and we're very lucky today to have one of our dearest friends here at Clemson University, who is nationally known as the Executive Director of Call Me Mr., Dr. Roy Jones.
Good afternoon, and you're too kind. Thank you very much.
Oh, we're just so glad to have you here. We're about to have a really interesting conversation, and the reason I know that is because we've already been having the interesting conversation and feel like we are excited about sharing it with our viewers. So this is going to be important. This topic, which is about the retention of teachers in school, is an important one. We often talk about the retention of students, but more important, not more important, but equally as important, let's put it that way, equally as important is retention of teachers, staying in the profession beyond the first couple of years. This is a national challenge. And interestingly, Call Me Mr., which is known for so many reasons, and I know, Roy, you're going to share a lot of the information about the program with us, also has an outstanding record related to their graduates staying in schools. And so we were joking about, we want to find out the secret recipe.
Right. What's the secret sauce?
What's the secret sauce that Call Me Mr. employs that maybe we could expose today and maybe make it not so secret? I think Roy's ready to spread the word about what's working, and that's good for you to share that, because we do need to work on this issue really strongly. Mm-hmm. And so any assistance,
rural, urban, it's every state has it an issue, so
yeah,
very applicable and very
So
important.
we're gonna have this conversation today, and we're gonna see if we can kind of develop some solutions that will meet the needs of those of you in public schools, and those of you who are in higher education and teacher preparation, and any other world that this would impact. So maybe, Karen, you can formally introduce Roy, because he has many titles besides Executive Director.
Dr. Roy Jones, Executive Director of the Call Me Mr. program, and he is professor in the Ed Leadership Department at Clemson University. And I don't know, you probably have other titles as well, but that's why you're here today, is to talk about your role in Call Me Mr. and that whole program.
Thank you.
And how it works with Clemson's College of Education and Training of Teachers.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for having me. Obviously, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, personally and professionally. The Call Me Mr. program, I'm proud to say, is housed and headquartered in the College of Education at Clemson University, where we've been since 2000. We're in our 17th year of operation out of the College of Ed. And during that 17 years, the mission has been the same, to basically recruit, develop, and help to place African American male teachers at the candidates that are going into teaching at the elementary and middle grade levels. That's been our mission. 17 years is still our mission. To retain teachers, it has to be intentional. We believe it's something that you have to have a goal in terms of your development. Also, with the not so secret sauce is that we're trying not to make secret, but it is in fact part of why Call Me Mr. is successful in not only recruiting black men in teaching, but to develop them as leaders and as mentors to sustain their commitment to the profession. As you know, over 6,500 teachers did not return in their classroom this fall, 2016, according to Sierra, the Teacher Center in Winthrop. And
So this is
for
in
different
South
reasons.
Carolina.
That's in South Carolina
Charleston,
alone.
a small state.
And by that, you are talking about staying in the profession, not, or is that going
Yeah,
back to a school?
Just in the profession, just staying in the teaching as a teacher. That's a lot of nearly 7,000 teachers. That's a lot of teachers in the state our size, and for various reasons. And what is also difficult to also swallow in that is that many of those teachers, the ones that are turning over the most, are in our neediest schools, where the children are challenged the most, communities are challenged the most with achievement. So it's not only a teacher turnover that we're facing and a shortage that we're facing in South Carolina, but the worst part of it is in the schools that need teachers the most. So Misters are developed during our program, and understand that though Clemson's the headquarters and we do have Misters here, we're actually collaborating with 21 other colleges. 21 other that's right, colleges, 2-year and 4-year colleges in South Carolina alone. So our collaboration grew from 4 colleges back in the 2000 to now 21 in the state.
And these are colleges with schools of education.
Schools of education and 2-year colleges,
And 2-year.
technical colleges. Because many times students must start
Right.
at a 2-year college and transfer. And we've got 7 2-year colleges that are formally licensed with Clemson, as well as our 4-year colleges. And these colleges are all over the state, private colleges, public colleges, small, large, and they all have cohorts of Misters in those states, in those colleges. Now, what we our co-curriculum is what part of the secret sauce is. That's the framework. Is that we know that if you're going to target a population of African American males in this state, you really do have to have a framework that recognizes their needs academically and personally, because we're designed to be a homegrown. We don't leave the state looking for Misters. Our Misters come from our K-12 public schools in South Carolina for the most part. In fact, a good 95% come from right here at home, because it was our belief at the beginning that the talent and the potential for success with teacher preparation and having those teachers go back into the same communities to teach was right here. We didn't look around the world and other states for the solution to our shortage problem, and particularly our shortage problem among men, because South Carolina places the fewest number of men in classrooms than any other state in the country. And so we had challenges on several levels. So we were very intentional about that, and very intentional about how to develop these young men to become successful. And we do that academically. They have to meet all the same admission requirements that everybody else meets. They have to go through the same teacher education program that everyone else does. But beyond that, the secret sauce is the co-curriculum. It's the development of peer mentorship and really instilling leadership within the Call Me Mister students. And that's done through the co-curriculum. Now, what do we mean by the co-curriculum? The co-curriculum is designed in a way that gives experiences that Misters have from day one. So they're taking a full load, a course load from freshmen on to seniors. And at the same time, they are meeting one-on-one with our advisors. They're meeting as a group with our advisors beyond the classroom. And they're engaged in leadership opportunities. We have an annual Call Me Mister Leadership Institute that is 4 days. That is right here at Clemson. We have a summer-long internship where Misters are developed, or we have 7 sites, for example, all around Clemson, where they're serving housing projects, enrichment programs, schools, summer camps, that if it wasn't for misters serving in those camps, they may not even exist because the budgets are so small they can't afford to hire anybody. But for us, we're in it because of the skill-based development that misters get, because they're serving children that are in elementary school, preschool, as well as middle school and high school, to hone their skills as teacher candidates. So for a full 2 months in the summer, they're consistently working in small groups, in teams of misters into these programs.
And the 21 institutions across the state who are involved also, they can start those misters as freshmen?
Yes.
Pretty much?
Oh, yeah. All of our schools, all of our colleges that are partnered, that are formally licensed with Clemson, they recruit misters as freshmen. And all of our partners can, we want every mister, no matter where they're located in the state, to be able to participate in the Leadership Institute as well as our summer internship. So they have those common experiences. But all of them meet with Call Me Mr. Site coordinators on a weekly basis, one-on-one. They all meet as a cohort. Often it has to be at night because we don't conflict with their class schedules, on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis. So they're constantly engaged as a cohort. And that's the other thing. We don't do this one-to-one. We don't recruit one-to-one. We recruit in cohorts. So on their 4-year college campuses, they're living in a living learning community. They're housed together in resident halls. They go to class together. Many of them have the classes together throughout their 4 years. So in a matter of a 4-year period, where they're also volunteering in schools during the school year, the after-school programs, as well as during the summer, we want them to continually be able to be engaged in the practice of teaching, the practice of education, so they develop a mindset and a commitment toward what they're trying to do. That's beyond the formality of the classroom.
And I'm sure they share among
Oh,
themselves
absolutely.
their stories and strategies. And
That's right, because they're consistently not only working with the children, they're working with each other. They're learning how to their relationships with school officials and administrators, other teachers. They're working with them. They work with parents. So they learn through the process of how parents, support their children, and sometimes how children aren't being supported by parents. They work with the most challenging of communities and challenged students that are having a difficulty finding success. What we're trying to help misters understand is that it's their job to find ways to connect with children. It doesn't matter what their family background is, whether they come from 2-parent homes, single-parent homes, and in some cases homeless, where they're coming from shelters. The idea is that a mister must be a champion for children. And in order for them to be an advocate and a champion and a mentor, they must also understand their own story. So we help misters throughout their 4 years be able to articulate their story. Where did they come from? What motivated them? What drove them? What obstacles did they find themselves in that they had to overcome? And they also had to challenge each other. So the part of the cohort is taking advantage of the power of the peer group. See, because we understand that influence used to be that the greatest influence in anyone's life was their parents and our church. They were the greatest in the school. Well, that trend has reversed. And now it's not parent, school, and church. It's television and their peer group are the most powerful influences on youth today. So if you don't understand that part, you've already lost part of the game. So but to be able to leverage that and understand how powerful and influential their peers can be, and formulate and develop that within the context of an educational or academic environment, you can really create a powerful culture where individual misters can really begin to, and it's not always comfortable, but they can really understand what makes them tick, what motivates them, what their priorities are.
The power of this cohort group is extraordinary, and And having met so many misters over the years, and to hear them talk about their brothers, yeah, and how they have started from the first day they arrive here, or maybe even before, if you have something that's pre-arrival at the campus, they will come from these little towns and cities, neighborhoods from all over the state with very different backgrounds, and they come together and they are put in a situation, but they're not just left on their own. There's this gentle guidance, and there's reflective times, and I think this piece about getting to know yourself has got to be huge, because I can't imagine how many young people come here, and you still think about yourself becoming a teacher is. Well, it's just the understanding you is so important, so they can therefore become good teachers and have relationships with students
Absolutely.
and others.
Authentic relationships.
Authentic relationships,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this cohort group, you start from the very beginning, and these experiences out in the community, meeting the family, working in schools, working in camps, and in all kinds of venues that you talk about. This starts from the beginning. And in so many preparation programs, they might start getting engaged in that. Might have a service learning class where I can remember doing something where you go out in the school, but that was the one-time thing, maybe a junior or senior kind of year thing. But from the very, very beginning, you don't lose any time.
No.
You don't wait.
No, there's
Yeah.
no time to waste.
Yeah.
And that's a very good, extraordinary point that speaks to the heart of why the process of what we call mysterization. The mysterization process does start with day one.
Yeah.
They identify initially with that academic or that campus coordinator, site coordinator. That's the first person that they identify with. That's the first person that they trust on each and every campus, because it's coming in as a freshman. You know, you're over. If it's a large university like a Clemson versus smaller institutions where it's not a little more intimate and more close. Not as overwhelming in terms of size. But either one, if you're coming new, and many of our students are first generation.
Yes.
They've never, they didn't have anybody in their family to attend college. So for them, it's another whole experience. So they have to have someone to identify with. And so when you think about having that adult with guidance, gives you that is trusted, that gives you the right kind of guidance and help you navigate the system, to demystify the system. And you have other peers that coming in the same time you are, faced with the same challenges. It's not so daunting. You feel at the beginning that you could possibly be here. So, because a lot of it is just that, first, you got to remember where we were at 17, 18 years old. You're not thinking about being a teacher at 17, 18. Very few do. They see it as a vocation, as a possible pathway, but you're really thinking about, I'm scared to death, and how am I going to get through my first class, if I last at all. And many, think about quitting first semester. That's normal and natural. The question becomes, at that moment, what is the safety net?
Support.
What is the support? And see, that's where having that adult anchor, as well as your peers, becomes so important to talk you off the edge.
Yeah.
And that's the initial process when you're a freshman and sophomore. Then you start beginning, okay, I've been here, I've gone through classes, I can make it academically, and now what am I really doing? And why am I doing it? And all along, they're exposed to people who have been successful from where they come from, can tell their story, because the power of story is we can't begin to understand how important that is. You have to be able to understand where you're coming from and who you are, because you're going to be faced with children, other youth that are going to have those questions. So you can't, if you've got things to resolve, unresolved pent-up hostility and anger toward whether it's your family, whether it's your community, whether it's your school, whether it's that teacher that you couldn't stand. All those things have to be laid out on the table. And you've got to be able to deal with them to gain perspective. And we've had those reactions from students that come and simply they've had horrific experiences in their K-12 experience. They have to understand what that means and turn it into a positive. We work on that for 4 years.
Well, I was just thinking a typical new teacher is going to have a great toolbox, a great toolkit. They go into their classroom, and that's when they experience those things that they don't really have anybody to talk to about or process it and learn. So over time, they can become skilled and know how to handle things. But if they give up before then and leave the profession, but you try to handle a lot of those things during the 4 years of training.
Absolutely, Karen. You know, I can't overstate that enough because what quitting can't be your first option.
Yeah.
You know, if you know, and that's what we try to instill in misters. We help them understand. You quit. Who you're quitting. First of all, why are you there? If you don't understand why you're in the school, why you're in the profession, that is a reason that is bigger than yourself, then it's a lot easier to quit. If you're in it for the money, you're going to quit. $25,000, $30,000 is not enough. You can make that not dealing with a classroom with 30 kids and parents that are all on you. There are other things you can do. So it's got to be reasons that are bigger than you. That's why the I in Mr. is lowercase.
That's what I was going to say. Tell us
The
about
MI,
that.
it's Mr. is spelled out. Mentors instructing students toward effective role models. The I in the title is a small I. It's a lowercase I, because it helps Misters understand, even in the very DNA of the program, that you have to, as a servant leader, you have to lower your ego and understand that the issues that you're dealing with, that you're challenged with, are bigger than bigger than you. It's not about you. It's about your service to the ones you're trying to really address in terms of their needs. So you've got to lower yourself in order to be able to really mentor, extend yourself to someone else. And as a teacher, we have the objective of Misters internalizing this attitude of being a servant leader, that they're a leader in their classroom, but they're also there for service, and they expand that attitude to the classroom, to their parents, to the community, that they're there to be a champion and an advocate for children. If you can do that, and that takes a process, because we're talking about millennials that all their life, it's all been all about them. They come to us, that there's an entitlement attitude that the world owes you something, and maybe it does. But guess what? You may not be lucky enough to be a beneficiary of that. So you have to understand that part of what your goal and objective is as a teacher is to be of service for the greater good of a family and of a community. And we believe education is a powerful way to provide support for upliftment, for empowerment.
Transformation.
I was just going to say this is a trend,
transformation.
and this is the ideal age, I think. You talk about 17 and 18-year-olds and discovering the world and going out the first one. But this opportunity, this experience that's provided has got to be transformative. And you probably have hundreds of stories of these young people and how they arrived at their different institutions, and then what happens over the next 2 years where they really get their teeth into their now profession.
That's absolutely right.
That period of time has got to be so interesting to be part of and to observe.
Absolutely. Oh, it's when you can witness the light bulb going on.
Yeah.
Whether that comes after the first year, the second year, or even the third year. By the third or fourth year, it's popped on. We hope it will, because you're faced with praxis exams and other qualifying exams that you've got to continue in the system, which an teacher education major is faced with like no other major on this campus or any other campus. They got to take a test to get into the major, a test to get certified to be able to work
Right.
as a teacher. There's no other major in the campus, on this campus or any other campus, that is challenged that way. So we help even those that need ways to fight for how important the development of teachers really is, and what it takes, the investment it takes to really be successful in an academic program. We help them look. We're not the. You can do, if you can't do anything else, you can always teach. That's not it. No, we take this as the most important thing. It's cool to be a mister. For an 18-year-old black male, the one time that might have been embarrassed or, kind of soft-spoken about their desire to be a teacher, didn't want anybody really to know. At 15, that they really like, the possibility of being a teacher. For a male, it's not macho enough, especially be it at the elementary level. But in 17 years, we've made it cool. And we have now children. I hate to think about this, but when we started, I've been, I tell misters, I said, look, I was a mister long before, the misters. I've been this 4 decades, but to see young people today coming in as freshmen that were barely in kindergarten when we first got started, and to have children look back and say, yeah, I remember seeing you on the Oprah show, and I knew then I wanted to be a teacher. Or I can, you're in first grade, and I've got misters now talking about when they first became a mister back in 2000. It's 17 years ago. So I've our first cohort. The misters that are entering today were kindergartners, first graders. That becomes part of the program's legacy.
Yes. Yeah.
And so for misters, telling your story and talking about all those stories you're talking about, everyone has a story.
Yes.
And it's not the same.
Yeah.
So you have to embrace yours, and then the program has a story. It has a legacy.
Yeah.
So we have to articulate what that legacy is to help folks understand how powerful it is. And you have to be intentional. 95%, plus of our misters are still in the classroom.
Let's read.
That's what I
Let's
wanted
say
to get
this
back to
again.
that.
That 95%.
5% since 2004, when we first started graduating misters. Now 2017, 95% of them are still teaching in public schools in South Carolina. And the other 5%, they didn't quit. They have, they're now assistant principals. They're principals. They're working in other central office positions. We had just recently a Clemson mister that just literally, we just got the word last week that he's now the lead teacher for the entire district. In central office, and so how does that happen?
Yeah.
It happens because we've made it personal. We've made it that if you don't make it, mister, then we get a lost kid. We get a kid that is headed for jail. We get a kid that may be headed for the morgue. You can be the reason that keeps that kid alive. So if a mister doesn't feel that in their heart, and know and understand and connect that, and we have every mister that can tell stories about who's been lost in their community, that if you can be the one that can stop one from a trajectory that can ruin their life forever, then this is a calling that could be and a legacy for you that could save your life.
So through your very intentional elements of the program, they leave with the how and the why.
And the why.
And the resilience to
That's right.
to handle different.
They're on a mission. They really are.
It's
They are
absolute mission.
totally on a mission. I'm interested in, the cohort group just really is such a strong piece of it. And they come in with their peers who are also first year.
Yes.
But there are obviously, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. So I'm assuming there's an awful lot of interaction and probably in a mentoring role but also a peer support role of all the ages. How does that work? Because I know if they're having the same classes, they're having the same classes with the freshmen, the sophomores. So there's that obvious thing. How do they interact with the upperclassmen who really probably help get them over the hump in a lot of things? When things are tough, they can tell their story
Absolutely.
and bring them up. And is that sort of
Absolutely.
formal part of an important part of the program? It doesn't just happen by luck.
Accident, right?
Yeah.
No, it's very
Yeah.
again, it's intentional.
Intentional.
The M in Mister is mentors, and we have what we call the trilateral mentor model, where I mentor Misters, Misters mentor children. So they've learned the process of mentoring from mentors they've had.
Yes.
They can Mister to Mister, which means I have once a Mister, always a Mister. So just because you finish your academic program, you're out there teaching and you're hot stuff now, and we have Misters consistently come back.
Yes.
We make it an informal obligation to come back and tell your experience, talk about your experience as a Mister and once you get out there. And we know that we cannot possibly cover, and you be, fooling yourself even as professors to say that you prepared a teacher candidate for every situation that they're going to face
Right.
and challenge they're going to face in the school. That comes with experience. The preparation comes with the fortitude that you have when you're faced with something that wasn't covered in your class, wasn't covered in our summer program, but you now have to face it. What does it take for you to make that adjustment? And it's a reminder of why you're there. And what is it that you would do? What is it that we would have you do in any situation, whether it's a conflict with a parent, an administrator, a peer? You have to learn to resolve those issues. What is it? Mister has to be the answer, not the problem. You either one or the other. If you're not the if you're not the answer, you're part of the problem. So we help them understand that challenge. So once a Mister, always a Mister, coming back to enrich the program with your experiences as a professional, and also with Misters that go through the trilateral mentoring model where they learn to be mentored and they learn what it takes to mentor themselves when they're faced with children and youth. So that's part of the process. That is, I think, distinctive. It's ingrained and institutionalized in the program, and we expect it to be duplicated. And so I say this all the time, that if I do a pop visit in a school, I don't want to see a Mister sitting in the teacher's lounge. That's not where I want to see Misters. You shouldn't be sitting in a teacher's lounge discussing how bad children are.
It's a terrible place to be
You want to
sometimes.
be out in the cafeteria
Right.
having lunch with the Mister. If they don't have an after-school program, I expect Misters to start one. There's no perfect school. Every school has a challenge. Most of our schools are Title I. Most Misters are working in Title I schools. So the challenges are never ending. So whatever the issues are, I expect you to be a solution to that issue. And the other thing is that we're not preparing Misters just to teach a certain population of students. I feel that any Mister graduates from any one of our programs successfully, fully certified to go in, that they can literally walk into any school in this state and be effective. Now, that doesn't mean that just because they're a Mister and they're in their first year that they're going to be the savior for that school their first year. We do expect and help them understand in the school that these still are first year teachers, and that need the same kind of first year support that anybody else would need. Unfortunately, because of our reputation, the expectation is very high. We've been branded. The Misters have been introduced many places as really being highly regarded and effective teachers, and they should be. But sometimes the success can also be a challenge for them going into their first year. So we take the bitter with the sweet. And
When
that's
they
what
get into
happens.
the schools, this whole idea of being able to be mentored instead of this whole thing, I'm going to go in my classroom and it's my world and you all stay out. But to know that, oh dear, all of a sudden there's a problem, that they feel comfortable finding people on staff at their school who they can establish a relationship and then have them become, as they go out into the world, they're always not going to be with the mentor and the peers on campus here, the misters. They're going to be out there in the world with lots of other people. And I think during their years here, they learn because of going out in the community so much that they feel comfortable doing that. Whereas maybe a teacher prepared in a typical way may not have that level of comfort.
That's right.
And confidence that it's not saying you failed to ask for help. It's a sign of strength.
Yeah, and it's a two-way street. There are schools that are incredibly very effective with first-year teacher induction. They've got lead teachers, and they've got a class of grade-level teachers that work very well and effectively as a team.
Yeah.
And so when Mr. comes in, they're embracing and they want to see the new teachers succeed.
Yeah.
That's the ideal situation.
Yeah.
And for the most part, that's what we experience. I've also seen the flip side. Oh, you think you're hot stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what you can do. And they're offering no. We'll see. Okay, you show us that you're as good as everybody says these misters are, and sometimes that doesn't work out very well. And many times it does. It's part of the challenge. So the mister then has to prove himself before they're embraced by the team and by the school. And I've had both situations, and I've had misters be successful in both scenarios. But that's just the way things are. You just can't always know what that culture of a school is. Many times it's the principal has created the kind of climate that they can develop teachers in the way they should be developed, and the teachers understand that. The largest challenge is what is the expectation for the children in that school. If it is at a low bar, then that's going to be a challenge for misters because they're not going to see the students as a low bar. They're going to see children where the student is, and they're going to try to bring them up to where they need to be. And sometimes that in itself is a challenge, especially if a mister is going extending themselves beyond where the culture, the level is at that point. And we've seen that. So that's what I'm saying, that Mr. goes in with, okay, where is my fit? What is my fit? The first thing they're doing is understanding their particular classroom and where those children are. The second thing is really understanding what the school culture and climate is, and where it seems that if it's it's a toxic environment, where students are doomed to failure, or is it one that can be cultivated to succeed? And we've got it A to Z in this state. But I've also got misters that are in all for one gender classrooms, all girls, and one gender, all boys, and I've got them with. Some I've had, discussions with misters where hardly anybody in class speaks English. So I've had that. I've had a mixture of diversity within classrooms, and a mister is again, what is your role? What is your role in any situation that you're in, mister? What are you trying to do? And that's when they got to talk about that toolkit. They gotta bring the tool that is personal and part of the cohort. See, the cohort just doesn't end as an undergraduate. The cohort continues. Part of the cohort process is that they've had other misters that graduated when they graduated and before they graduated. They can pick up a phone and email and do social media and say, hey, if I got a problem with a parent or a problem with a problem child that I can't seem to get to, they can rely on each other as that part of the support network.
Isn't there also a middle school and high school component of the
No
whole
high school.
process?
There's middle school.
Middle school.
Yeah, the state at one time the certification went through 8th grade for elementary. Fortunately, the state divided that, split it up, so you had elementary that stopped at 5th or 6th grade, and then middle grade, and then you had high school. We just retained. We allowed middle grade to be qualified as a Mister. We don't have the capacity to include high school. We just don't have the when I say capacity, the personnel, the framework and the scope to include developing high school Misters.
I think what I was thinking about, your misters go into schools to mentor. Do they do that, or aren't there some middle school groups that are mentored by misters?
Or while they're here at Clemson?
Yeah,
or
maybe
they're-
on the summer. Is that
They're
a
in there.
summer?
Oh, I see what you. Yeah. Well, understand that Misters are mentoring whether it's
Wherever they
yeah,
are.
where they are, whether they're teaching and as teachers, what we're saying is that you're a teacher, but you're also always in a position to mentor. Because what happens is a lot of times, what a student, whether a middle school, and you know how challenging a middle schooler can be, whether it's a middle schooler or an elementary student, you have to do things beyond just teaching them the
classroom.
basic class. Whether it's their subject areas, reading, writing, arithmetic. Because the behavioral issues have been getting in that child's way. So if you got a kid that's 5th, 6th grade, that's been a challenge for that school all along, and I've got a Mister that's teaching 5th and 6th grade, Mister recognizes that what is getting in the roadblock for this kid achieving is these behavioral issues. They're coming from all kind of reasons, different
Yeah.
directions.
Sure.
So that's where the mentoring comes in, to see the child beyond just, if you're not going to learn in my class English or language arts or math, then I'm going to kick you out. I'm going to. Very few misters. If a mister refers someone to the principal's office, then that child is really such a disruption that he's hurting other students. But the mister recognizes that that child's acting out needs something.
Yes.
The mister is trained and developed to recognize that there's a need there, and I've got to assess what that need is.
It's a symptom
Where is
of-
it coming from? Exactly. It's always a symptom. So the punitive nature of there is no punitive nature in our program. It's developmental. We've had misters that come to us with all kinds of challenges. If we just exercise a punitive approach, we'd be suspending misters before they get through the program. But recognizing where they're coming from, ours is developmental. We say, hey, we've got some things we got to resolve, or you're not going to make it. In a ways that is developmental, in a ways in language that has to be heard. Now, does that mean that every student that enters our program makes it through until the end, successfully completing? No. In fact, some misters don't make it through because they figured out early that teaching is not for them, but they may change majors. And but by that time, they've also been exposed to what Mister has through the
Yes.
co-curriculum, and it takes that with them. So
That's good for anybody,
That's
whatever
good for
their major,
anybody.
to have that development
Exactly.
in a positive way. I mean, I've been fascinated about the evolution of the Call Me Mister program. It doesn't stay the same. And I learned just last week that you have a new requirement, or maybe it's in recent years, but I just hadn't heard about it, is study abroad. And the students that I met, the misters,
Just
had
last
been to Ecuador. And they asked, well, why'd you go to Ecuador? And it's to help them with their Spanish. And when you mentioned the schools, and this is a growing experience all across the country, that there are many young children whose language is not, their native language is not English. And their parents certainly have a more difficult time, because it's harder to learn a language when you're older than it is. I'm finding that out. I'm trying, but when you're younger, it just comes. So this is this is one of the changes, and I'm just curious why you did that. I presume it's to help with the situation. Well, tell me why.
Well,
Tell
I
me
can
why.
say, well, thanks for asking. Actually, the study abroad is not new. We've
I've
had
never
study
heard
abroad
it.
for years. In fact, our first one among our first study abroad students was Justin Ballinger, who
Why
studied
did I not
abroad.
know that?
Who studied abroad in Italy. So we've had students for several years that were studying abroad in Italy. We've had misters that have studied abroad, like you said, in Ecuador, in Costa Rica, and so I think Brussels was another. So no, it's the global international experience is a good one.
It's a transformative
It's
experience
transformative.
on its own.
We've had Africa. I mean, we've yeah. I mean, we think that exposure is important. That again, the world is larger than where you come from, and it gives another perspective on understanding that you're not the only one that have challenges, and that you and it's not, you don't have to be afraid of the exposure. We've had misses go studying abroad that got on a plane for the first time in their life. And traveling halfway around the world. I'm not sure I could have done that at 20. So yeah, that has been a part of the program for several years.
That's exciting to me. It really is, and in so many different ways.
I wanted to ask you, I'm thinking about who may be watching this program today. We have teachers, counselors, administrators, people in other states, and I want to come back to that in a minute. But I wanted to ask you, if you're a school system watching this program today and you say, I want to get a mister to come and teach in my school. That's one question. How does that happen? And then I was thinking also, if you're at a school and you have students, maybe a high school has students where you as a teacher or counselor have noticed they might be potentially great teachers. How would they get into the Call Me Misters program?
That's excellent.
How do you hire the Call Me Mister graduate, and how do you get into the program?
We want to spread the wealth as much as possible. And that's why we're proud of the fact that our network is all over the state. That there's really no, that any mister, any potential high school student, and most of our misters are referrals. They come from referrals by everywhere from school counselors and other teachers to even ministers. And I've got one of my biggest referrals is a barber. He's cutting hair, and he's got a hot prospect in the chair. He does not let him get out of the chair until he picks up. I'm telling you, I can be anywhere in the country. I've gotten calls from this barber sitting in my office and while I'm at airports because he has somebody, and we've got that relationship. So often it's through referrals. People understand that this is an opportunity, that even if they don't become teachers, that we're a resource, and higher ed that can help guide a young man.
21 universities.
In 21 universities, colleges in South Carolina alone, and we're licensed in 9 other states. So Clemson has license agreements in 9 other states in this country that are challenged with the same things that we were challenged with 17 years ago. So the program grows, and we don't go out and actively seek new partners. They usually come to us, and we just go through the system, go through the process. So part of it is referrals. That's how they can call our office, email us at Mr.
We'll put it up on the
Yeah,
screen.
that's what I was going to say too. We'll put some resources,
Mr.
links to your
Clemson,
program. We can put that up on
that's
the
the easiest way is to
page.
email us, and we can engage in that conversation. The second question was, districts that want this. And that's part of the challenge. We believe that our model is effective. It's one of the best in the country. We've consulted all over this country. We think it is the go-to model when it comes to developing African American male teachers, especially at the elementary level. That's why we're all over the country responding to inquiry and also spreading the brand. Quite honestly, Karen, it would take, our program is poised for scaling up. And the only way that we can more effectively assist districts with getting their mister in their schools is for our program to scale up. We have doubled the number of African American males that have taught at the elementary school level since 2000. We've graduated 204 fully certified African American male teachers in this state, and they're all, like I said, 95% are still in the classroom. There were only 200 when we started back in 2000, so we've been effective. That's not the problem. But even with that number, and as impressive as that sex record has been, it's not enough.
It's not enough.
When you're talking about nearly
How many
7,000
different elementary schools
right.
in the state? Yeah.
And this
Exactly.
brings it to my question, which is, twofold. Like Karen, I'll be twofold as well. That other teacher education programs, what can they implement such a program, even though they may have 500 education students, in a large university, or maybe 20 in another one? And that's one question. And then the second one would be, what can schools do to help first-year teachers, second-year teachers, in some kind of way get some of that secret sauce?
The secret
Yeah.
sauce.
And then I think we're having to close it down. But if we could just address those two things, I'm excited. Yeah.
Well, quickly, it's a developmental process, so it's not a quick fix.
Right.
Part of what I think misters, because we now have misters that have finished our program in 2004, and have been teaching now for 13 years, 14 years in counting. They've learned a lot.
Yeah.
They've become master teachers,
Right.
and proud to say are family men, and I'm amazed when I get wedding and baby shower
Of course.
announcements. So the net effect is way beyond the scope of our program, but because people are gainfully employed and contributing to their community, that's what happens. They are become contributing citizens. But to expand it beyond, I think there's a value in Misters sharing what they've learned. I think that's the next level for the program, is how to capture the kind of expertise that Misters have developed over the course of these 17 years, and how to share that. And that's another episode.
Yeah. Continues
challenge
to
for the program.
evolve.
Absolutely.
Continues to evolve. Well, there's certainly some elements of Mister, I think, that our viewers can pick up on now, especially in higher ed. But the co-curricular piece is pretty important, I think.
It's absolutely essential.
And
It's
that's-
intentional. See, the
that's where-
intentionality
back
of
to
it
that.
is really important to understand. You've got to have an objective, and you've got to believe in it, because part of it is believing in, I'm saying, many of our young men would have been thrown to the wolves because of behavioral issues, and we see many of these characteristics as leadership qualities,
Yeah.
whereas others see it as as a problem in terms of disruption,
Right.
and there are others that just having to find their way. They've been good students. They've not been not disturbed schools, and they've been teachers' pets and all of that, and we take them all. Once they're admitted into the program, wherever they are is where we're working with them.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's not punitive in nature, and that's hard for schools. Schools tend to be punitive and not developmental.
Yeah.
So it's an attitude. That's
Yeah.
a mindset
Yeah.
that
Well,
it
it's
takes.
transformative.
And because it's developmental, it
Yeah.
becomes transformative.
Yeah.
And it began in South Carolina.
Absolutely, right
Now
here, right where we sit.
We're spread. Your
Awesome.
program though is in Mississippi.
9 other states.
9 other states.
And it's
You need
a
to list those
fantastic
on the
model.
website, Karen, what those
Okay.
states are. So,
Yeah,
and of course, they
we
can
should
go
do
right
that.
to the Mr. Program to find out if
Other
they
states
have one in
in
their state.
growing, I might add.
Yeah, is it mostly southern states?
Most of them.
Yeah.
But we're as far north as Virginia, and far west as Kansas.
Well, there you are. There you are. So it's growing as it should, because it's producing some wonderful results. And certainly it's a model for how to prepare teachers. I think that's my bottom line, is
Stick to it,
to
too.
figure out a way intentionally to take these elements of Call Me Mister, the co-curricular elements, and see if they can be part of your teacher education program. That would be my takeaway if I'm in that world. And as far as schools, there's a lot of takeaways about relationships and other kinds of things in mentoring that I'm hearing also that can be takeaways. But always great to have a conversation with you,
Same
Roy
here.
Jones.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very
the
much.
program continues. I didn't know about the study abroad. Why did I not know this? I worked with Justin. We obviously didn't get to talking about Italy. That is exciting. Thank you, Karen, for being here today.
Great program.
Wasn't it good?
Thank you,
Thank you.
Dr.
What a
Jones.
great way to start
you all.
the week here.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation as much as Karen and I and Roy have, and that you will have some takeaways of your own. And so we look forward to seeing you next time on Solutions to the Dropout Crisis. Solutions to the Dropout Crisis, addressing the dropout crisis one strategy at a time.